Let me tell you about Ivan, Grey Wolf and the Firebird. Imagine a garden made all out of jewels. A garden where every fruit and every berry is a diamond or a ruby, where every leaf is an amethyst. Imagine this garden. It belonged to Tsar Dadon, Tsar of the 9 Kingdoms. He loved his garden, but there was one tree in it he loved most of all, a simple apple tree that grew right in the middle of his garden. And he loved it because every autumn it bore fruits of pure gold. He loved it so much that when he came down one morning into his garden and found that one of the fruits of the tree had been taken, his heart was broken. And he called together the 3 people he trusted most, his 3 sons, Dmitri, Fyodor and Ivan. And he called them and he said, "Sons, my dear sons, some thief has broken into our garden and has made off with one of the golden apples from my tree. Boys, you must find the thief. Find the thief and bring him here for justice. If you find the thief, I will reward you with half my tsardom." Well, the Tsar's oldest son, Dmitri, was very greedy, and he liked the idea of half a tsardom. He said, Father, of course I will find who did this. I will watch, and if they come again, I will catch them. So he set himself up in the orchard, and he waited as the stars came out, as the night grew darker, as the night grew colder, and he waited. He waited until he saw a rosy glow arising in the east. And he said, "Oh, morning has come and no thief has visited." And he closed his eyes just for a moment, but when he opened them, one of the fruits had gone and the night was as dark as it had been. The second son, Fyodor, he liked the idea of half a tsardom too. He said, "Oh, Father, my elder brother has failed, but don't you worry, I will watch, I will catch the thief." And he set himself up in the orchard and he waited as the skies grew dark, as the stars came out, as the night grew colder, and he waited. And he waited until he saw a rosy glow arising in the east, and he thought, "Oh, here comes the morning, dawn is coming and no thief has visited." And he closed his eyes just for a moment. When he opened them, another of the apples had gone. And the youngest son was not greedy. He didn't really want anything, but he could see that his father was grief-struck by the loss of these golden apples, and he said, "Father, let me stay up and let me watch and see if I can find and catch the thief." So he set himself up and he waited while the skies grew dark and the stars came out, and he waited as the night grew colder, and he waited until he saw a rosy glow arising in the east of the sky. But he did not close his eyes. He kept his eyes wide open, and he was amazed to see the rosy glow was not the glow of dawn coming. Instead, a beautiful firebird came streaking through the sky with flames peeling off behind it. And it flew over the garden and it landed on the top of the tree, and it reached down to pluck one of the golden apples out of the branches. Ivan was awestruck by the beauty of the creature, but he did not want to fail his father, so he reached up as high as he could to grab hold of one of those feathers. Oh, it burned his hand. He let go, but not before he pulled it from the tail of the Firebird. The Firebird flew up into the sky as the feather fell down and down, and as it fell, the Firebird turned and said, "Keep the feather as payment for the apples I were taken. If I ever come to take it back, I will pay with my life." And away it went. And Ivan looked at the feather with its oranges and its golds and its burning coruscations, and he took it to his father and said, "Father, I have found the thief. It was a great firebird, and it left a feather." And when he saw the feather, his father's heart was filled with hunger to have that bird. And he said, "Boys, come to me. Dmitri, Fyodor, Ivan, come to me. We know who the thief is. It is a firebird. I want that firebird more than I want anything else. Boys, if you'll catch that firebird and bring it to me, I will reward you with half my tsardom." Well, Dmitri thought the idea of half a tsardom was very exciting. So he said, Father, let me go. I will find the bird and I'll bring it back." He jumped on his horse, and off he went and out of the story. And we waited for a month or more, but he did not return. And the second son, Fyodor, he liked the idea of half a tsardom. He said, Father, let me go after him. I'll catch the bird. I'll bring the bird back. He's failed. I won't. And when I come back, you can give me half your tsardom. And he jumped on a horse, and off he went, out of the story. We waited for a month, maybe more. He didn't come back. And the youngest son did not want tsardom, but he could see that his father was grief-struck. He said, Father, let me go after them. If I can't find the firebird, then at least I can try to bring my brothers back. "Oh, no, son," said the Tsar. "You're far too young to go on such an adventure. Please don't." "Father, I will go, for I care for my brothers and I would like to save their lives, or at least I'd like to try." And the Tsar's heart softened. He said, oh, son, you may go, but please take the firebird's feather and put it in your cap and keep it there. And it might light your way to find your brothers or the bird. And if you fail, as fail you might, at least it might pay your way back here." So Ivan got on a horse till he came to a crossroads, and the crossroads had a sign, and the sign said, "Go back and fail. Go forward and starve. Go left, you will be eaten by wolves. Go right, and your horse will be eaten by wolves." Well, Ivan was no coward, and he urged the horse to go forward. But the horse was a noble steed and would not. Instead, it went right. And it passed through the woods, and as it passed through the woods, a giant wolf leapt out from the trees and tore it to pieces and ate every shred, till all that was left were the bones lying on the floor. Oh, Ivan wept for the horse, and he lay beside those bones on the ground. He wept for 3 days and for 3 nights, and on the 3rd night the wolf saw him. And the wolf took pity, and the wolf came and licked his tears from his damp cheeks. And the wolf said, "I have done you wrong. Tell me, what do you seek?" So Ivan told him, "I'm looking for the firebird that took the apples from my father's orchard." And Grey Wolf said, "I know where you can find that firebird. Climb on my back, I will take you there." So Ivan climbed on the wolf's back and grabbed hold of the fur at the back of its neck and wrapped his knees tightly around the wolf's sides, and the wolf galloped, who knows for how long, through forests and through mountains and across mighty rivers, through 9 kingdoms, until he came to the tsardom of Tsar Afron. And then he came to the castle of Tsar Afron, and he stopped and he said, "I must explain. I can help you over the wall. When you go inside the castle, you'll find yourself in a garden, and it won't be hard to find the firebird, because the firebird shines and its light fills the garden with golden light. So follow the light and you'll find the firebird. But please, you may bring the firebird back to pay for the theft of the apples, but you must leave the cage behind." So Ivan climbed on the wolf's back, and the wolf stretched up, and Ivan clung onto the top of the wall, and he pushed himself up, and he flung a leg over, and he dropped down the other side, and just like the wolf had said, he was in a garden filled with golden light, and there, the brightest part, in the middle, there was the Firebird in a huge golden cage studded with jewels. So Ivan approached and he thought, I'll take the Firebird. And then he thought, last time I touched him, my hands burned so. How can I carry the Firebird? It's hot. Far better, I carry the cage. So he took hold of the cage and he pulled it, and all at once all the bells in all the towers around the castle started ringing and ringing. They were each fastened to the cage with a fine golden thread. And as the bells rang, Tsar Afron came out of the castle and he was angry. Who is stealing my Firebird? And then he saw Ivan. And Ivan was dressed as a king, and he was dressed as a fine man, and he held himself like a noble. King Afron was confused. He said, why would a nobleman come to steal from me? And Ivan said, let me explain. My father, Tsar Dadon, loves his tree, and he loves the golden fruit that grows on the tree, and the Firebird stole the apple, so I came to avenge that, to set that right. Tsar Afron said, you may well have done, and had you come to me and explained your quest, I would have given you the Firebird. It is only right. But you came to steal. And you came to steal the cage that the Firebird lives in, and the cage has done your father no wrong. Theft of the cage deserves the most severe punishment. Oh, said Ivan, please do let me do something to fix. My father is so upset. My father's heart is broken. I only want to help him. Well, said Tsar Afron, I can understand that. Something very special to me was taken. My horse of power, Chestnut Grey, was taken from the stable by Tsar Berendei, who lives 9 more kingdoms to the east. If somebody could bring my horse back, then perhaps I could let the Firebird go. Said Ivan, let me. I will go and I will bring the horse from Tsar Berendei. And if I bring your horse, will you let me take the Firebird back to my father? Well, said Tsar Afron, that's easily said, but it's less easy to do. But you can go and you can come back. But whether you come back as a common thief or as a prince depends on your actions. So Ivan went back and he climbed over the wall and he explained to Wolf what had happened. The Wolf said, oh, could you not have wrapped a handkerchief around your hand to carry the Firebird? Why did you have to touch the cage? I had told you. Oh, well, I can't help. I know where Tsar Berendei lives. Climb on. So Ivan wrapped his hands in the fur and threw his leg and held on tight as the Wolf galloped through forests and through meadows and through estuaries and over dunes until they passed through 9 kingdoms and came to the tsardom of Tsar Berendei. When they reached there, Wolf explained. He said, Chestnut Grey is held in a stable in the palace. And I can help you in. I will help you over the wall. You'll find the stable. It is right there. And you can take the horse, but please do not take his bridle. Ivan climbs over the wall. He finds the stable. He sees the horse. The horse is beautiful. And he says, how can I lead a horse? The horse won't just follow me. I'll have to bring it somehow. Far better I just hold the bridle and bring it. So he gets hold of the horse's bridle, he pulls on it, and all the bells in all the towers around the palace ring out because they're all fastened to the bridle with fine, fine golden threads. And as the bells peal out, Tsar Berendei storms out of the palace saying, who would steal from me? And he sees Ivan. Ivan is dressed like a nobleman. He holds himself like a prince. Why would a noble person come and steal from me? Says Tsar Berendei. Please let me explain, Sir Ivan. I've come just to fetch Chestnut Grey, the horse of power, to take him back to his owner, King Afron, because if I take the horse to King Afron will let me have the bird to take back to my father, because my father is so sad because of the loss of the golden apples, you see. Well, well, says King Veranday, I can understand. After all, I too have felt a similar loss. My beautiful daughter, the princess of inexhaustible loveliness, was stolen from my palace by Koshka, the king of death. And anyone who could bring my daughter back, I would give them anything. Oh, says Ivan, let me try. I could get your daughter from Koshka, the king of death, bring her back here. Then you could let me take the horse back to King Afron, and then Afron would let me have the bird of fire to take back to my father to pay him for the apples. Well, says Veranday, I suppose so. I mean, you could try that. But, if you fail, you will be a common thief. But if you succeed, you will be a prince. Go on your way. So Ivan goes back to the Grey Wolf. He explains what happens. Wolf is, oh, not again. I tell you. And you have to touch the bridle. Oh. Anyway, I know where Koshka lives. Climb on. Ivan climbs on, grabs hold of the fur on the back of the wolf's neck and wraps his knees round, holds on tight, and through 9 more kingdoms of forests and mountains and hills and dunes and deserts and frost and ice, until they come to the palace of King Koshka, the king of death. Let me tell you about him. Koshka has lived for thousands of years because he cannot die, because he has hidden his death. And where has he hidden it? No one knows. Maybe he's hidden it in a broom. Maybe he's hidden it in an egg. Maybe he's hidden it in his daughter's tears. Nobody knows. And if you cannot find and reveal his death, he cannot die. He will live forever. He lives in his castle with his daughter, Koshka, the one with a wooden heart, the one with no joy, no sadness, no pity. He lives there and has lived there for thousands of years and will forever, unless we find his death. And he's taken prisoner the princess of inexhaustible loveliness, and he's kept her there. And she knows she must find his death. And so she asks for a broom. And when the broom is come, she snaps it. Nothing happens. The death is not in the broom. And she asks for an egg to eat in the morning. She smashes the egg. Nothing happens. The death is not hidden in the egg. And Ivan arrives at the castle, as black and as doomed as it is. And the wolf says, you must go in now. You'll find the princess if you see a lit window in the tower. And you can climb up and you can bring her. You can bring her. But do not bring her gold and silver slippers. And Ivan climbs in and he sees the tower with a lit window, and he climbs up the creepers and the vines that cover the tower, and he climbs in the window. He sees sleeping on a divan the most beautiful creature he's ever seen, the princess of inexhaustible loveliness. She shines from inside, not just with beauty, but with goodness, love and kindness, and his heart goes to her heart. She wakes, she opens her eyes, she sees him, and she's not scared because she sees his face is kind, and her heart goes to his heart, and he says, come quickly, follow me. I have a wolf waiting outside to carry us back to your father's house. She follows him and she climbs out of the window, but just as she's coming out of the window, all the bells in all the towers ring out. She is still wearing her gold and silver slippers, and they are fastened each to a bell by a fine golden thread. And as the bells ring, out come Koshka and Koshka. Who would take the princess of inexhaustible loveliness from my castle. It's me, says Ivan. I've come to take her. I've come to take her back to her father, because you stole her from her father. And if I take her back to the father, then he will let me take the horse. And if I take the horse back to the Afron, then he will let me have the Firebird. And I can take the Firebird back to my father to pay my father back for the stolen apples. Yeah, says Koshka. I won't let you go. And Ivan is downcast, but his face is still beautiful, and Koshka, the one with the wooden heart, she sees him and she sees his beauty, and she's never felt this before, but she feels something, and her face changes just a little. Koshka sees it. He sees that his daughter likes the boy. I'll make a deal, he says. I'll make a deal. If you stay here with my daughter, I will let the princess go back to Prince Berenday. But you will stay, and she will go. No, says the Princess of Inexhaustible Loveliness. No, I cannot go. I want to stay with Ivan. I love him, and he loves me. We will be parted only by death. And Koshka, with the wooden heart, feels a little green sprout growing from her heart, because she sees the love, she sees the connection, and her face falls just a little, but the Princess of Inexhaustible Loveliness sees it, and she sees that she's feeling emotion, and she feels sad, so she goes over and she takes Koshka's head and she kisses her on the forehead. And Koshka's heart splits open. Out grows a sprout, and roots grow through her feet, and they grow down into the earth, and branches and leaves sprout from her sleeves and go into the air and down, and tears pour from her eyes, and they pour not from a girl, but from the weeping willow which she has become. And as the tears pour down onto the ground, Koshka crumbles like a dried leaf, blows away, because his death was hidden in his daughter's tears, and now she's released the tears. His death is laid open. Don't wait, don't wait. Ivan takes the Princess of Inexhaustible Loveliness. They climb over the wall onto the wolf, and the wolf gallops. Who knows? 2 days, maybe more. It's hard to tell in a story till they get back to the palace of Tsar Berenday. Tsar Berenday is so pleased to see his daughter. He says, "Daughter, you've returned to me." And he sees the love between his daughter and Ivan. He says, "You may marry my daughter." The next morning they are married. The bells ring out, but this time with joy. And the two of them get back on the wolf, and they ride back to the palace of Tsar Afron. Tsar Afron is so delighted to see they've brought the horse. And he's so delighted, he says, "You may take the Firebird back to your father, and take your bride, and take my horse too." And together they come back. Then they ride through, who knows, 3 days, 4 days, it's hard to tell in a story, till they come to the crossroads where Ivan met the wolf. And there the wolf stops, and he says, "I have brought you back to the crossroads. I have repaid my debt to you, and you must go on by yourself." So Ivan and the Princess of Inexhaustible Loveliness get down from the wolf at the crossroads, and they say goodbye, and the wolf goes into the forest. They start their journey back to Sardadon's castle. But just as they're starting, they see two strangers, two hunters on the road. "Who are those two people?" they say. "Oh, it isn't hunters," says Ivan. "That's my two brothers. It's Dmitri, it's Fyodor. They've come to meet us." And he calls them. He says, "Boys, so good to see you. We've had long journeys. How lovely to see you." And Dmitri and Fyodor see him, and their hearts are filled with jealousy. They say, Ivan's got the Firebird. Ivan's got a beautiful wife. How should he have these things where we have nothing? And they conspire. And then they paint on smiles. And they go to meet him and they embrace him. And as they embrace him, they slide their knives into his heart and he falls dead. The princess of inexhaustible loveliness is struck dumb with horror. And the two princes take her and take the Firebird back to their father's house. They say, Father, we've brought you the Firebird. You will have to give us half your tsardom. Oh, says Fyodor, I have the most beautiful wife now, and I will marry her, not tomorrow, not the next day, but on the third day the bells will ring, and we will be married, and she will be my queen. And the father's pleased. He has the Firebird, and he cannot break a promise, so he will give them half tsardom. 3 days, when the wedding takes place. Back at the crossroads, Ivan lies dead for 1 night and 2 nights and 3 nights. But on the 3rd night, the wolf sees something shining, and the wolf comes out and he sees Ivan lying dead. What's that glowing? It's the Firebird's feather still in his cap. And the wolf lies down and places his head next to Ivan's head, and he weeps. And as he weeps, his tears fall on the feather. And as that feather is moistened by the wolf's tears, a glowing light fills the sky. Back at Sardaidon's palace, the princess of inexhaustible loveliness knows something's up, and she cannot speak, but she can act. She releases the Firebird from its cage. The Firebird circles once and circles twice and lands right next to Ivan and sees him there dead. And she takes the feather and she says, this feather will give me the strength I need to do what I must do. And she flies as straight as an arrow with fire and flame peeling off behind her through the night till she gets to the very edge of the world. And when she gets to the edge of the world, she finds the spring, that spring where the stream flows from, the stream which has the water of life, and she bends to take some of the water of life into her bill. As she does so, the stream sings, I will give a life, but in return I must take a life. But the bird doesn't stop. She takes up the water of life in her bill and she flies all the way back through the night. And just as the day is dawning, she arrives back at Ivan, lying there at the crossroads. She stands next to him and she lets the water dribble from her bill onto Ivan. Ivan opens his eyes. He sits up. What's happened? He says, have I been sleeping? Oh yes, says the wolf, you've been sleeping. You would never have awoken if it weren't for the Firebird. Look at her. Ivan looks. There's the Firebird on the ground, her golden feathers turning ashen grey, her fires extinguished. Ivan lifts the Firebird in his arms and carries it back to his father's palace. As he walks in, his brother Fyodor is standing at the altar, not yet married. He's standing next to the princess of inexhaustible loveliness, but she turns and she sees Ivan, and her heart is filled with joy to see him alive, and she's able to speak again, and she points at Dmitri, Fyodor, she says, thieves! Murderers! And she spills out everything that she's seen, everything that's happened. Sardaidon is filled with anger and he banishes his 2 sons far from his kingdom, and they are never seen again, at least not in this story. And Ivan and the princess are together with the Firebird, and they take the Firebird outside and they take branches from the trees, from those jewelled trees, and they lay them down and they make a fire, and they lay the Firebird on top of the jewelled branches and they light the fire. The body of the Firebird is consumed by flames, every feather, until the last one crumbles to ash and is gone. And there, amongst the ashes, is a golden egg. The egg cracks, and out comes a tiny new Firebird who flitters and flutters and lands on Ivan's shoulder. And the Firebird grows big and strong and Daedon and Ivan and the princess let it come and go just as it will, and they let it take its fruit from the trees. And every time it eats an apple, it leaves a pip, and every pip grows into a tree. And every tree, every autumn, bears a rich harvest of golden apples. And we eat those apples still. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope it wasn't too long. Maybe I will do a short one next time. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.